Hello, my name is Vasiliy, Soshnikov, or just Vas, and today I will speak about why my company, creates own models and share some theory and practice about that. So our agenda is, first, I will try to answer a question, why, which cases were solved by development of models, and after that I will, say some common things about Nginx architecture, and at the end of this speech I will share some practical things. Before we start, why makes your own models? Actually, everything in Nginx is about models. So, for instance, let's say Perl, Gzip, GeoIP, all of this is models. So, the main point is to add new feature as a model or solve some business issue or probably some problems. And here is the first example. Actually, what is MailRu Group? It is the 5th biggest internet company in the world, and MailRu Group has something like Google Analytics, and Nginx uses for this service to set a special cookie to the user and collect special logs. And our service is ads. Yeah, we have a lot of banners, and Nginx is core technology to sense banners to the users. That's really important. And also, the services collect a lot of statistics about user behavior because that's important to show correct banner to correct user. And in our case, is most interesting is more an infrastructure case. MailRu Group has a lot of special proxies because inside MailRu Group sometimes doesn't use HTTP for communication between microservices. MailRu Group has a message pack, and that's why we have created a model which allows to convert load balancing and failover our microservices. So, 4 words. What is Nginx? Actually, everything in Nginx is models. For instance, I tried to draw an Nginx architecture, and it looks like we have one big Nginx. It has core. Core is something like OS function. And also we have built it based on core HTTP, upstream, scripts, and our features. And modules built on top of HTTP, upstreams, and script. And Nginx architecture is about modules. And another point before we go forward is Nginx memory model. You have to think about this model each time. Why is so important? Nginx uses pool allocation. That means you don't need to use malloc or free function. Nginx will free all data, and that's actually the main point. You have to choose correct pool. For instance, let's say you use connection pool, and it will not be free your memory before connection is active. That's important. And another things, avoid using external memory function like malloc. It's very important. And actually, here is a simple example. It's actually part of Nginx code. Here's Nginx conf structure, and here is a pool reference. So just think that Nginx is a framework. Nginx has data structure, a lot of data structure. Nginx has operation system AP, and even more, Nginx has event-driven state machine for polling file descriptors, sockets, and timers. So, going to theory, everything in Nginx is based on pattern chain of responsibility. Just think that user sends a request, HTTP request, to Nginx. And this request will pass chain of models. And if something went wrong, then it will be break. And user will see something, I don't know, something unexpected or probably expected. So the good analogy of this pattern is this shell script. It's very simple. For instance, let's say AWK failed for some reason. That means sort and WC will not execute it. Another point, another main thing in Nginx is phases. Let's say our user sends request, and there are some phases which will be executed in correct orders. I will back to this soon. It's just for, how to say, just for forwards. And main point, too, Nginx has special types of modules. First type is fuzz handlers. Second is filters, heady and body filters. Another type is proxies. And the last one is load balancer. You can develop any of this model or even more, you can combine some of these. Start with some practice. Well, before we going further, I wish to mention that very important things. All Nginx modules begins with configuration. So you have to think about configuration. You have to think about DevOps guys. So before you write any single line of code, you have to speak with your DevOps guy and trying to understand what he wishes to use in production. That's important. So think about configuration all time. Also, I recommend to use special name policy. Actually, I tried to show this policy here for this simple example. It's really helpful for understanding some details of your model. It's really very important. Well, as I mentioned, important things is configuration. And let's say we have some location. We have I don't know, add header. Add header actually is a module too. And before you do anything, you have to register your new directive in C code. And important thing that, yeah, Nginx modules is how to say, you have to write them by using C language. It's very important. There is no any chance to write for any other language. Let's say we wish to add some directive. Actually, and the main interesting thing that I add a reference to source codes of Nginx, and you can find this structure and understand how it works. But let's say we wish to add some directive. Actually, it's very simple. We just create an array of directive and just register our directive. This directive is very important because it will be entry point for DevOps guys. So you have to think about how it will work. Also, after you understand which directive will be added, you have to register your model. And for that, Nginx gives this structure. And it's very simple to register your handlers there. So after you create some configuration directive, register your model, you have to add some logic. The important part of model, it should add some logic inside Nginx. And in this section, we will speak about phases. And back to this slide. How phases work? Let's say we have some handlers and access or content phase, and we wish to add a new handler, our own handler. That means it will be appended in this list in special phase. Actually, here is the list of phases, which could be, not all of these could be, how to say, served by your handler, but here is a list, and here's a link to source codes. And as I mentioned, to add a new handler, you just need to add a new function into the array. For instance, in this example, I added how to say, a new handler and content phase. That means if I access this model on special location, that my handler will return something to the user, some content. And here's actually free primitive action. Is just set entry point for model initialization, is register your handler on special phase, and add some implementation. But it was about phases, and we have another type of model, and it headers and body filters. So you should think that this part works every time as chain of responsibility. If you change something, any part of content, that means it will be changed forever. So you have to be careful at this part. And here is actually the simple example how this filter could be registered. So the same actually sentence, just set entry point for initialization, add new filter in the chain. The next type is actually very complex type, is proxies. I'm not sure that I can explain in a few words because it's a very big topic. What is proxy? Let's say you have some backend which work which I don't know, by using some protocol like HTTP, and you wish to have a way to proxy some traffic from Nginx to backend. And that's about proxy. That's about balancing. But proxy is pretty complex things, and I have some reference to some proxy model at the end of presentations. But I wish to show that it's actually very simple to add new proxy into Nginx. You just need to, it's actually a real code from my real open source project. The reference on this project at the end of this presentation. But this how to say, registering is very simple. You just need to add directive like proxy pass, I don't know, but here's TNT pass. You have to add a new upstream, and you have to register a handler. That's actually all for registration. But because we speak about proxy, we also should think about how we can serve content or content handling. And at this part, there is a lot of, I would say, interesting places. Let's try to explain on this example. Before all, we have to register handler, and this handler will be our content handler. We have to create some special function which will, which translates input data into output data. For instance, let's say we have HTTP request and we should convert it into the, I don't know, message pack. That means we have to write this logic in our C code. And here's actually example from real project. And Jesus, that's actually all. I was too fast. And here's actually a links to Nginx tutorials also, the first link is very simple examples. So you can use it to play with Nginx models. Second link is actually custom upstream, is custom proxies model, which developed by me a few years ago, and also a few links which were interesting for, which could be very interesting if you wish to develop our model. And also, yeah, that's all. Here's my contact information. Actually, if you have any question about modules, we can discuss by using email, for instance. Questions? Mm-hmm.
It's quite a bit of an investment to start the right module, right? Because it's complex, you have to write it in C. And there are alternatives, like writing stuff in Lua or in the JSON module.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the switch over point? When you should switch over?
Mm-hmm.
What's the language to writing your own C module?
Yeah, I forget to mention that, but about mail.ru case, about, I don't know, about statistic or internet analytic case, we can use some custom HTTP server, but the problem is that MailRu Group has over 1 million keep alive connection. So there are no chance to develop some backend because it will cost a lot, I mean resources. That's why solution is very simple, just develop own model. And you write about, you have to have a lot of C developers who understand not only Nginx, but sockets, Linux kernel, a lot of things. And in my experience, that's the main problem. There are not so many guys who know C, Linux kernel, networking, and Nginx, because Nginx is a framework.
So is it more about CPU limiting, or perhaps more about memory usage when you use it in terms of language like Lua?
Lua has a lot of problems. It's not actually Lua, it's Lua JIT. And for instance, it has a lot of limitation about memory. The first limitation, you cannot have more than 2 gigabytes memory per one Lua instances. The second problem is Lua has pretty bad design in garbage collector. It could fail on your production. And if you speak about, if we speak about 1 million keep alive connection, no way, Lua will not work. And another problem is that it will be slow because Lua works very bad with strings. And if we speak about analytics, ads, there are a lot of strings, a lot of parsings. Yeah.
You want to get some data or like statistics or whatever. Before, just to jump down.
Actually, here you can find, you can find some examples with templates. It's actually some handlers and few filters. And it could be, you could use this as template to do something. And if for some reason you will have some problem with understanding of that or some issues, you can use GitHub or you can write me email. Here is my GitHub account and here is my email, and I will help. I like this.
There's also an easy Hello World module. Oh, okay, this is on GitHub.
Yeah, it's very easy Hello World model. Yeah, it's like hello world, like, let's say one of the example is like count number of words in the body reply. For instance, let's say you have backend, it returns some data and it just count the words. Yeah, it's good for starting point.
So just going back to that question that asked about Lua versus using the modules, right? I am just trying to understand the memory management that you're talking about in Lua as opposed to what happens in the module. Is it that the memory pool design allows you to reuse memory instead of the garbage collection that happens in Lua? Is that primarily the difference? Because I do see a scenario where Lua might be easy to do some of the things that you could do without having to go through this notion of recompiling and so on and so forth, right? So can you talk a little bit about what your experience is with that?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Actually, Lua is okay, but for some of tasks, not for all. And yeah, the problem with garbage collecting in Lua exists. But if we speak about Nginx memory model, it's like pool allocation. Nginx allocates a lot of memory, and piece by piece you can use it in your model. And that's all. It's like it has reference count and it reuses this memory. And Lua doesn't have this feature. It's like garbage collector. That's all. You don't have any guarantee about will be data deleted or not. Who knows? And because I have a lot of experience with Lua JIT, I know some tricks how it could be fixed, but is over-engineering too. And another problem with Lua JIT is Mike Paul. He actually main contributor of Lua JIT. I guess he doesn't do nothing for Lua JIT.
So would that be different if we were to look at JavaScript?
I don't know. I don't have any experience with JavaScript. Really, I don't know. We don't use JavaScript.
But I've seen JavaScript being mentioned as another VM where you
Probably yes, but I don't have answer here because I don't have any production experience with JavaScript. So I guess you can try. Probably it will work. As I know.
The next talk will be about JavaScript.
Yeah. Actually, Dmitry has great presentation about JavaScript, and I very interesting with this. Why? Because I have a lot of problem with Lua, and I had a lot of and have Lua doesn't work sometimes, and also I don't like develop C models really. Yeah, I'm C developer, but I don't hate C. Really, it is pain for me. GDB, Valgrind. So I guess Dmitry gives a lot of answer about JavaScript because it's very interesting for me too.
So one of the things I'm presuming here is that as long as you're within the infrastructure of what Nginx framework provides, you would be fine. If you were to just step out of that in terms of talking to the kernel directly to do some things, I suspect that you are then outside the bounds of what Nginx is also trying to provide as a framework, right? And that may have its own set of limitations. I'm just trying to understand where that boundary is and so on.
It's a very complex question, but for some tasks, for some issues, inside Nginx, I didn't use Nginx as a framework. I use syscall directly.
Okay, so you use syscall directly?
Sometimes it depends.
So how do you manage the whole interaction in terms of the async callback and so on? Because that seems to be a problem if you don't use the Nginx approach, because you won't get the async callback, right? If you're really trying to.
Yeah, but Nginx give you event-driven state machine. You can use timer. Yeah, timer. It's like hack, but it works. Mm-hmm.
Few words about actual compilation to compare advantages of statically compiled models with the dynamic ones, and some words about this stuff.
I don't have any experience, production experience with dynamic models. Sorry, I use it only static. So I guess Valentin or Dmitry can share experience about static versus dynamic models.
Actually,
It's possible. Everything possible, actually. Nginx is a framework. You can develop any feature. So, yeah. Actually, as I know, there is a lot of hacked upstream modules, proxy modules on the GitHub. I guess probably somebody already did that, but I'm not sure.
Is there like a standard set of tests out there that you can drop your module in and make sure that you're not screwing up different things?
Good question. There is no any standard about testing. Yeah, there is a PRL framework for testing Nginx. I didn't use this framework. I use almost all time Python for testing Nginx. But it's like functional testing. It's not like unit testing. And I'm not sure unit testing framework exists. Valentin. So the answer was there is a framework. I guess it's a PRL framework, right? Yeah, it's PRL framework. And for my case, I'm just using Python for the same things. Yeah, that's important part. Actually, it was comments and answer, and the point is that, yeah, functional testing is okay, but you also have to test it with heavy workload. It's very important. But it's actually it should be separate test. I mean, heavy workload test. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Nginx doesn't. Even more, it could stuck for some reason. And the question?
Actually, I just wanted to make a short announcement. We are running tomorrow a class called Developing Index Modules. There is space available if you want to join us. Vladimir is one of our instructors, and is able to come on as well. But we'll get into the weeds, as well as talking a little bit about some of the topics you covered here in this session. If you're interested, just visit registration. They can get you hooked up.
Any question? Well, thank you very much for visiting. And if you have any question, just you can find me here or write email or ping me on GitHub, and we can talk about modules and Nginx. Thank you.